Our I can statement for today is E5. I can solve two-step equations. If you haven't already seen part 1 of E5, go back and watch that. That talks about simplifying expressions. What we're going to talk about today is once you've simplified your equations, how to then proceed to solve them. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to model our equation on the scale. So we have two x's. Remember that we can draw an x by doing circle and then triangle, so that represents our pawns that represent an x. So I've got two of those guys. And then I have a positive 3. And remember, on your paper, you can just do a box, and you could just do a +3 to show that that's positive 3. On the other side, I have a positive 7. Okay. Now, we want to get one x all by itself. And since we don't really know what x equals, we want to start by getting rid of all the other numbers on the same side. So what we can do is we can get rid of that positive 3 by taking it away or adding a negative 3 to both sides. Okay, because if we do it to one side, we want to keep the scale balanced and do it to the other side as well. Okay, so the positive and the negative, they cancel out. They add up to 0. Okay, so we are left with two x's on one side, and on the other side, negative 3 and positive 7 add up together to make positive 4. Now, we have two x's, but we want to figure out what just one x is. But what I can do is I can take my x's and I can divide that entire side into two groups. And if I do that to one side, I've got to do that to the other side. Now, 4 divided into two groups becomes 2 and 2. Now, what we know is that if I divide both sides into two equal groups, then 1/2 of one side is going to equal one group on the other side. So that tells us that x has to equal 2. Now, let's show that abstractly, meaning with our algebraic equations. Okay, so I'm going to draw my line. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that 3 because I want to just have x's on one side. Positive 3 and negative 3 add up to make 0. But instead of writing 2x plus 0, I can just write 2x. On the other side, I have 7 minus 3, and that adds up to 4. Now I have two x's, and I just want one. So instead of having 2 multiplying x, I'm going to divide both sides by 2, because that's our opposite of multiplication. Now 2 divided by 2 is 1, so that means I just have 1x, and I can just write that as x. 4 divided by 2 is 2, so x equals 2. Let's do the check. Remember, for the check, I'm rewriting my original equation. So I have 2 times x plus 3 equals 7. But instead of writing x, I'm going to write 2 instead. That's my proposed solution. Now I can type this into my calculator, I can use mental math, but since both sides add up to equal 7, since both sides are the same number, that lets us know that our equation is true, and so x equals 2 is the correct answer. So x equals 2 is our final answer. All right, let's take a look at the next one. So I have positive 2 plus 2 x's. Actually, sorry, 3 x's. So I have 1, 2, 3. And then on the other side, I have positive 14. Now, I want to get all of the x's alone. So I need to get rid of that 2. So I'm going to take away 2 from each side. Positive 2 and negative 2 add up to be 0. So I'm left with 3 x's on this side. And then on the other side, I have 14 minus 2, and that's going to give me 12. Now, I want to split both sides into 3 equal groups. Why 3? Because I have 3 x's. So I can split this side into 3 equal groups, and then I need to split this side into 3 equal groups. Okay? So 12 divided into 3 equal groups gives me 4 in each group, and then I know one group on one side has to equal one group on the other side, so x has to equal 4. Let's show that algebraically. So I am going to subtract 2 from both sides, so that cancels out. I get 3x equals 12. Then I divide both sides by 3, so I get x equals 4. Now, what's the rule? What have we noticed? Well, we start on the side with x, and we need to get rid of the number that's added or subtracted first. Then once we've done that, then we can divide by whatever number is multiplying x. And remember, we call that number the number in front of the variable that multiplies it. We call that the word coefficient. So we could just simplify by saying divide by the coefficient. So that's our rule for these types of problems. Now, I want to take a moment and talk about what happens if we do stuff out of order. Okay? So what would happen if we divided first and then we added or subtracted? Okay. So I'm just going to kind of shrink down what we already did, and I'm just going to move it off to the side. We're going to use this same equation, but I'm going to solve it a slightly different way. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to divide both sides by 3. But remember, going back to our visual, when we divide into 3, we have to divide everything on each side into 3 equal groups. So I've got to do 2 divided by 3, and then I do 3x divided by 3, and then I do 14 divided by 3. Okay? So 2 divided by 3 I can write as 2/3. And then 3 divided by 3 cancels out to make 1, so I have 1x. And then I have 14/3 on this side. And written as an improper fraction, it's 14/3. Written as a proper fraction, that would be 4 2/3. Okay? Then the next step that I would have to do is I would have to subtract 2/3 from both sides. Okay? 2/3 minus 2/3 is 0, so I have 0 plus x, or just x on this side. 4 2/3 minus 2/3 gives me 4. So x equals 4. The answer is the same. So why do we say that this is the preferred method to do it? Why do we want to do it the original way? Well, let's take a look. Did I have to use fractions with the first way? No, I had nice, simple, easy numbers. Okay? The second thing is a lot of times people will forget that when we're dividing, we have to divide everything. A lot of people will skip this step. They'll divide by the 3 over here and over here, but they'll forget to divide by 3 over here. And so that's going to give you an error. That's going to give you the wrong answer. Okay? So because it makes our expressions more complicated, they're not nice and easy, and also because we have to do more division, the second way is way more complicated. So I just want you to remember to just do it this first way. Start on the side with x, get rid of the added or subtracted number first, then divide by the coefficient. So this is the rule we want to stick to. All right, I want you to try this one on your own. Okay, so I'm going to draw the line down. Now, first I want you to think, which of the numbers do we need to get rid of first? The 2.6, the 4, or the negative 13.2? If you said negative 13.2, you're correct, and that's because it's the number that's added or subtracted on the same side as x. So that's what you want to get rid of first. If you're not quite finished solving the problem, go ahead and pause the video and start it back up again when you're ready to check your answer. Okay, hopefully you're ready to check your answer now. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the negative 13.2 by doing the opposite. I'm going to add 13.2 to both sides. Okay, now that's going to cancel it out on this side because we have positives and negatives of the same number adding up to make 0. So I'm left with 4x on this side. Then I have 2.6 plus 13.2, so that's going to be 15.8. Then I want to divide both sides by 4. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to get x ball by itself, and I have 4 x's currently. So I want to figure out what just one x equals. So 4 divided by 4 will give me 1x, and then 15.8 divided by 4 will give me 3.95. That is my final answer. Now let's do a check. I'm going to write my original equation. 2.6 equals 4, and instead of writing x, I'm going to do times 3.95 minus 13.2. I want to see if both sides equal 2.6. So I'm going to type into my calculator 4 times 3.95 minus 13.2, and I do get 2.6. So what that tells me is that both sides of the equation are equal, and this is my correct final answer. All right, I want you to try this one on your own, and then start the video up when you're ready to check your answer. Okay, my first step was to get rid of the negative 2.01 because that's the number that's added or subtracted to my y term. And I'm going to do that by doing the opposite. Now, some people might think, well, how do I know? Because there's a plus, so the opposite of that would be subtraction. But then there's also a negative, and the opposite of that would be positive. Well, remember, we want to focus on the sign in front of the term. Since that's a negative, we want to do the opposite, which is positive. But another way to think about this is if I thought about, oh, the positive or the addition is my operation, I would need to subtract negative 2.01. Well, subtracting a negative with keep, change is the same as adding a positive 2.01. So that's two different ways to think about it. Okay, either way, this cancels out. Negative 8.4 plus 2.01 is going to be 6.93. And remember, we want to keep it negative 6.93. That's going to be equal to 5.25y. Then I want to divide both sides by 5.25. So I end up with y equals 1.32. This is our final answer. Go ahead and do the check to make sure that we know that we got the correct answer. So we're going to plug in negative 2.01 plus 5.25 times 1.32. We want to make sure that that equals negative 8.94. Okay, and if we type in negative 2.01 plus 5.25 times negative 1.32. That gives us the correct final answer of negative 8.94. So negative 1.32 is our correct answer. Okay, go ahead and try this one and start up the video when you're ready to check your answer. All right, the result after the first step should be 4h equals 512. Then the result after the second step should be h equals 5/48. Now, if you got a different answer than I did, you might want to double check in your calculator that you typed 5 ABC 12 divided by 4. You want to make sure you use that fraction button, or alternately you could use parentheses. Okay, so our final answer for this one is h equals 5/48. All right, try this problem on your own. Now this one might look a little bit more complicated, but I just want to point out that we still have one number added or subtracted on the same side as f, and we have another number that is multiplying f. Okay, so even though there's fractions, even though it looks like there's a lot of numbers going on, we still just have the same two steps that we've seen in previous problems. Pause the video if you need more time to solve this one. All right, so my first step would be to add 5 1/2 to both sides. The reason that I'm adding is because we have a subtract or a negative sign. Okay, so we're going to add 5 1/2 to both sides. So on this side, it's going to cancel out. So I'm going to be left with negative 1/7 times f on this side. And we will have 6 1/7 on the other side. All right, now I want to get rid of this entire number in front of f, negative 1/7. And negative 1/7 is multiplying f. So that means on both sides I'm going to divide by negative 1/7. So I'm going to write that on both sides. Okay, and it's important to make sure you write divide because it could be easily confused with subtracting since there's that negative. Okay, so I'm going to divide both sides. Now if I have a number and I divide it by the same number, it cancels out to make 1f. And then I'm going to type in my calculator 6 1/7 divided by negative 1/7. And I'm going to end up with negative 43. So f equals negative 43. Now, if I'm doing the check, I'm going to type into my calculator negative 1/7 times negative 43 minus 5 1/2. And I want to make sure that that equals 9/14. And when I check that on my calculator, indeed, both sides total the same value, 9/14. So that's how I know that f equals negative 43 is my final answer on this problem. All right, we have a story problem. A music download service charges a flat fee each month and 99 cents per download. The total cost for downloading 27 songs this month is $42.72. How much is the flat fee? All right, so our total for this one, we know that altogether in total we spent $42.72. Now there are two things that make up this total, okay? There is a flat fee that we pay every single month, okay? So I'm going to, since that is what we're looking for, I'm going to make that my variable. F is the flat fee that we're paying each month, okay? Then we also pay 99 cents per download. And we know that we downloaded 27 songs. So 99 cents times 27 is going to get us the total amount that we spent on the songs. So let's go ahead and compute that. If we do 0.99 times 27, we get $26.73. Okay? Now, if I subtract that amount from both sides, that is going to tell me what the flat fee is. So I type into my calculator 42.72 subtract 29.73, and my fee each month is $12.99. Once again, thanks for watching, and you can watch this as many times as you need to for a quick refresher on this topic.